Hotep, assalamu alaikum. Back again to do another video. This one is also going to be on a movie that I watched this morning. The name of the movie is called Jason's Letter. And what I wanted to talk about as far as this movie is concerned is not so much about the movie itself, but about what the movie was trying to convey as far as the letter is concerned. And the movie is supposed to be based on something that actually took place as far as the subject matter that I'm going to get into. And that subject matter is going to be dealing with police brutality, police killings, as it pertains to people of color, more in particular, Black people. So this theatrical release was released in 2017. So the movie is like 2 years old. And the synopsis of this movie is dealing with a 12-year-old boy grieving from the loss of his best friend. Decides to take matters into his own hands after realizing marches and protests have done nothing. Now, with that being said, am I against marching and protesting? No, I'm not. Is that a route that I would take or would suggest to others to take? No, it is not. That's not, I'm not going to say that's not my fight, but that's not the way that I choose to fight. I have not seen anything that has really come about from protesting and marching that has really put a dent into the things that Black people have had to deal with in this country since slavery and after slavery. So that's not a way that I would choose to, fight the powers that be as far as, what we're talking about now, or anything that has to do with people of color, especially Black people in this country as it pertains to this system. But mind you, if that is the way that you fight, do what you got to do. There is no one particular way to win this war. There's no one particular strategy that is going to win this war. It is going to take everything that we have to throw at these people, whether it's from a social point of view, political point of view, economic point of view, scientific point of view, whatever, topic that you want to pick as far as how these things have been used to plague us as a people. It doesn't matter what angle that they come from, whatever method that we choose to use to combat whatever angles that they choose to, come at us from, that's what we're going to use. So again, there's no one particular way to, fight a war. There's no right or wrong to freedom. And whatever way that you choose to get free, then whatever works for you, that is what you use. So now, dealing with this movie, the goal of Jason was to bring about change in the police department. More in particular, I think in the police department that was in his community or, in his city. And I think the young man was 12 years old. And what he proposed was something that adults didn't even think of, according to the movie. And I'm going to get into, what those goals are. Now, the movie, it was okay. The message, as far as what his goals were, that is what I paid, close attention to. They had some key actors that were in the movie. Vivica A. Fox, the brother that played in the football movie Blindside, and there was one Hispanic dude that I recognized that was in the movie. He was or his child was one of the victims of police brutality. He's also been featured in in numerous other movies. But they had some key people that were in this movie. But the acting, to me, maybe it was the way it was written, I don't know, but the acting was not where I think it should have been as far as these people that I saw in the movie. But nonetheless, it is still worth watching. So let's get into the goals that this young man had presented to the city council during that particular time when all of these events took place. One of the goals was the temporary removal of all non-minority police officers until new training and better methods for racial biases are established. Another goal that he wanted to implement was reevaluation of all the remaining officers. Number 3, policy revision to mandate all new officers. Policy revisions to mandate that all new officers be recruited in the neighborhood or community that they will serve and protect. And I think that's something that a lot of people, when all of these police killings and shootings were going on, I think this is something that, a lot of people wanted to implement, because, a lot of us look at it like this. If we're going to have people policing our communities, then at least have people who come from those communities or in communities that are similar to, those communities that we come from. Hire people from those communities, because they pretty much know the thinking and how to relate to the people of those communities, because they come from those communities. Because before they were, police officers, they were regular citizens, and they basically did and acted the same way that everybody else in the community, portrayed themselves. So if you're going to have someone that is going to be your protector and supposed to be serving the community, then you will want someone to come in that would at least have some sympathy as far as how that community works. So I thought that was a good idea for this kid to implement that in what he was trying to convey to the city council as it pertained to, the killings and the shootings that were going on in his community. Another goal was that all officers spend 80 hours per year within the communities that they serve, taking part in activities such as coaching sports teams, reading to the children at the local library, helping elderly citizens with home repairs, and assisting local business owners. And the last one was that officers that do not pass assimilation and sensitivity training should be removed immediately from the police department. Now, these are the goals that this young man wanted to implement as far as trying to stabilize what was happening in the community between the community and the police department and police officers and the citizens of the community more in particular. He was seeing, or he saw, which I stated earlier, that, marching and protesting to him did not do anything. It was, more of the same. You march, you protest, you do this to, at the powers that be, and they basically don't do shit, which has been a standard all throughout this country. So I commend him. But with those goals, is that shit logical? Me personally, I do not think so. I don't think those goals are logical. And that's simply because you're talking to people who already know what the problem is. They're in power. And they have the ability to implement change. But the question is, do they want change? Because when you're looking at crime, even though they tell you that crime is something that we need to get rid of, this society, as far as how it is built in its inception, was built off of crime. It was built off of debauchery. This is how they stay in power. This is how they keep wealth. This is how they make money. Now, is it like that all across the board? No, it's not. But for the majority of how this country is ran, it is ran through lies, deceit, deception, through some shady channels, backroom deals. It's just basically bullshit to the 10th degree. So these people are not going to change that narrative, because if you have a police department, in order for that police department to stay in business, there has to be crime. Otherwise, there's no need for a police department. So to curtail crime puts a damper on the police department or police agencies in general. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard it. I haven't really done any research on that, but chances are it's probably true. You know, these cops, these police officers, they have a quota that they have to reach. So if they're not reaching that quota, then you got to implement something that would cause the scales to tip in a way in which they meet that quota. Because in order for the police department to exist, for police agencies to exist, there has to be crime, and it has to be a significant amount of crime. Otherwise, they're going to have to do layoffs, and they can't afford to do layoffs because if crime shoots up, then they're not going to have the manpower to really deal with those escalating situations as it pertains to crime. So I don't think this shit is a reality. It's not to say that it's not good. It doesn't sound good, and it could probably work. But is it a reality? Nah, there's just too much shit against, what this young man wanted to implement. It's just too much against it. Now, I haven't done any research to find out if they actually had this implemented. And let's say that they did. That's just one area. You have the United States, which is 50 some states, and then you have to deal with those counties. Those are a lot of counties. And for them to implement this across the board, there's just no way that shit is going to happen. But let's move on. Now, as I stated, I don't think that this shit would happen even in the movie, even though the movie is dealing with some real implications or real things that supposedly happened or based on true events. The city council initially rejected the goals or the plea of this young man. But later on, I'm not going to say reneged, but they had a change of heart because in the movie, while they were going on with these proceedings, with this council meeting or community meeting, there was another killing. And it was another black individual that was killed, a young man, teenager. I think he was about 12 or 13 years old. And he was killed by the police. And that was what prompted them to take what this young man was offering them into consideration. Now, like I said, whether it was, it was brought to the point where it got some light and they made it stick, that remains to be seen. The movie didn't go into that. And like I said, I haven't uncovered any information that deals with that, whether it was implemented or not. But here's the other thing that I wanted to get into. This movie also had critics or a critic. It was posted by this guy by the name of Marlon Wallace. I don't know if he was the one who wrote the article. I don't know if he was the one who gave the reviews on the article, but I thought that his assessment, if this is indeed the guy, they were worth talking about. So one of the problems that the individual who criticized this article or this movie had was with the character of Vivica Fox. And Vivica Fox played the city manager, and her goal was to try to get this young man in front of the council so that he could, read to them the goals that he wanted to implement, because she thought that was very brave of him. And it was also intelligent of him to come up with these solutions that, the so-called adult population in that area could not and did not come up with. So, according to this critic, they looked at what Vivica has stated as being, biased. They brought race into it. Basically, it was the goals of this young man was basically, the goals of a bigot. But according to the person that, critiqued this particular theatrical release, it was stated that, and this is according to, what Vivica Fox has stated as far as her role in this movie, that white officers are responsible for these shootings or killings. All white people should be removed or no longer allowed on the police force or in the police force. That is not what the goals were pertaining to. The goals did not have anything to do with just removing all white people and them not getting their jobs back. It says that the goal was to temporarily remove them. It didn't say that they couldn't get their goals back. It did not say that they would not hire any white officers. Just dealing with the issue of what is at hand, that was the reason why that was stated. Now, the critic is looking at this as, a race thing, prejudice thing, discriminatory thing. I disagree. And that's because with the character of Vivica Fox, the things that she stated as far as what the critic was trying to express as far as being hypocritical, these were statistics that she uncovered that said that the majority of the shootings that happened in the area were done by white officers. That doesn't mean that there weren't police officers who were other than white that didn't do some shady shit, because they did. But as far as the police killings were concerned, it was white officers that stood at the top of the pile who were committing these acts of violence against people of color, more in particular, young black people, or just black people, period, whether male or female. So to say that that has some bigotry behind it, that's not bigotry. Those were the facts. And in this country, that's some shit that they like to roll with, which is facts, stats, statistics. So she brought the statistics to the table. So if you're going to call anybody a bigot or someone that you think has a biased motive as far as what was stated, then you have to go to the people who conducted the study. And that didn't have anything to do with the city manager. That didn't have anything to do with the kid named Jason as far as his complaint and what he wanted to implement to stop the violence that was going on in his community. That had nothing to do with those individuals. You would have to take that to the people who conducted the experiment, or not experiment, but who conducted the research and came up with the facts or statistics that they came up with. And 9 times out of 10, when you're dealing with stuff like that, the people who are running these so-called companies or organizations who do stuff like this, 9 times out of 10, they're not owned by people of color. You may have people of color that may work there, but 9 times out of 10, they're not black, brown, or yellow. 9 times out of 10, these are white people. So again, when you're dealing with bigotry, as far as it dealing with racism in this particular sense, that's ludicrous. You can't even use that. How are you going to have white on white racism? Another white person hating another white person because of that shit makes no sense. That's just fucking stupid. But I know people do things like that, but it's crazy. We have stupid issues like that within the black community, but that's another story for another day. So we're not even going to get into that. So now, dealing with the legal issues behind it, like I told you guys, I think that it would be very, very hard to try to implement, these goals across the board. Are they commendable goals? Yes, they are. But I don't think that, that shit would happen. But some of the issues that would be very difficult to make this happen, as far as from a legal standpoint, would be you have to now deal with the fact that now whites can actually sue based on racism. They can actually sue based on prejudice. They can actually sue based on discrimination. All of those things would apply, because everyone that is white does not think like those whites who just happen to be racist, who just happen to practice prejudice and discriminatory acts. All white people are not that way. So those that aren't that way, they can sue. And even the ones who may be that way, they can sue also, because how in the hell can you really tell who and what a racist is? By their clothing? By the way that they look? How can you really tell? Only way you can really tell is by deeds and actions. And if you are good at covering up the way you truly think, then how can you detect that? I don't care how many programs that you run people through as far as trying to get them to change or even get them to bring out a hidden nature. If they're good at concealing things, there's no way in hell you're going to find out who and what that individual is until they commit those acts or say something that is along the lines of being racist that leads to prejudice and discrimination. Let's move on. So now, according to this critic, this is what this critic had to say. According to the critic or critics of this movie, whether it is a he or she, this is what they state. The logistics alone would be a nightmare if all white people were eliminated or denied on the police force. There might not be enough officers to handle the city, especially if a true emergency broke out. Even with white people, many law enforcement agencies complain that officers are overworked and understaffed. If all the white people were removed entirely, that will only exacerbate those issues. Simply put, even if Jason's solution weren't bigoted, it would still be highly impractical. Now, like I stated earlier, in my opinion, I don't think the young man's goals were based on bigotry at all. He did his research. Matter of fact, this all started from a project that him and his fellow classmates, it was an assignment that they were supposed to do, which it ended up, expanding into what I'm giving to you guys now. But his fear and his wants, his needs, the way he looked at his community and the things that were going on in the community as it pertains to the police and the citizens of that community, that had nothing to do with bigotry, man. That was based off of the fact that this shit actually happens. We don't even need the movie to deal with the fact that these things have been happening throughout the United States since the United States has been the United States. We've always had a problem with the powers that be as it pertains to the enforcement, whether that be the slave patrols, paddy wagons, that shit morphing into the police department, and then going all the way back to the Ku Klux Klan, the Night Riders, all that bullshit. All that shit has been going on for hundreds of years, almost 500 years. Maybe it's over 500 years now. So to say that the way he stated what he stated was based on bigotry, that's bullshit. That's straight up bullshit. These are things that are happening throughout the United States to black and brown people. And it's happening every day. Matter of fact, while I'm doing this video, it's probably happening right now. And whether it makes social media, the news, or not, it doesn't negate the fact that it is a fact and these things are happening. And there are statistics to probably back up a lot of these incidences where the majority of the people who are being brutalized, the majority of the people who are being killed, whether they had a gun or not, 9 times out of 10 is usually a white police officer. But like I said, that doesn't, take away from the fact that when you look at the police department, especially through the lens or the eyes of a person of color, we're not looking at black, brown, yellow, and white. We're looking at all of y'all as the same. You're the guys in blue. Y'all have a code that you're supposed to, that you stick by. And all of y'all are looking at each other as the same, as brothers and sisters in arms. So when we look at y'all, we're not looking at y'all from the point of, black, brown, yellow, white cop. All of y'all are blue. And we're looking at all of y'all in the same manner. So even when I'm out, when I see a cop, whether he's black, brown, red, yellow, my attitude doesn't change. My thing is, when they get behind me, what does this motherfucker get ready to do? Or if I'm out in public and because I look the way that I look, and I'm not necessarily talking about, the color of my skin. I look like them dudes that would be out there on the street. What is this guy thinking? Or what is she thinking? And these are things that play, in your mind when you have an interaction with a police officer. When a police officer gets behind you, some people get nervous. You straighten up your posture. You're checking your speed. You're looking in the mirror. You're trying to make sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing while driving a vehicle. If you're walking, you try to make sure you don't go in those neighborhoods where people like you are not frequently found there, because you don't know what's going to happen when you're there. And now it's getting to the point where, hell, you can be in your yard, on your front porch, and you can still get harassed or shot or killed or beaten or taken into custody by the police. So to say that what this young man brought to the table was based on bigotry, that's bullshit. All right, let's see how much time I got left. All right, my time is almost up. So let's deal with what bigotry is. Bigotry, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is a person who is obstinately or intolerantly devoted to his or her own opinions and prejudices, especially one who regards or treats the members of a group, such as a racial or ethnic group, with hatred and intolerance. And like I said, to me, I don't think that was the case as far as what this young man was trying to bring about and convey to the city council and the people who were there for the meeting. I felt like what he brought to the table was genuine, and it was based on, truth and facts. And Vivica A. Fox's character pretty much solidified that with the statistics that she brought out. So now here's the solution. So I always try to give you guys solutions with, no matter what it is that I bring to the table when I do my videos, especially videos of this nature. 1, accept your own and be yourself. 2, support Black, empower Blackness. 3, learn to govern self and your communities. 4, stop begging and pleading with the powers that be. 5, develop think tanks, which is a must. Every other race, for the most part, they have those. If we have them, they're few in numbers, but that's something that we need to develop. And last but not least, build your military so that you can protect everything that you love and everything that you build. Any nation that is a nation has a force that is there to implement, to keep in place, and to enforce their culture, the way that they think, their norms, their ways, their folk ways. All of those things are there to protect that so that the people can stay intact. So that's how we get past all of these things. Now, what I gave, that's not the main solution, but it is a solution. So if you guys got anything that you can add to the table, implement that within your community. Let's come together. Let's network. Let's do what needs to be done to save the Black community. This is Hakim Muhammad. Y'all know how I do. I salute you. Peace. And until the next time, Black Power.